Hey yo, checkers. Check, yeah. Welcome back to the channel. I wanted to do a behind the scenes of the short film that I uploaded recently, but I wanted to talk with you quickly before I do that. This is going to be a little bit pretentious, and it's barely even a 2-minute short film, even with the credits, and it's going to end up being like a 20-minute behind the scenes. But there's a reason for that, and I want to briefly explain that before I show you this. It's probably no shock to you that I really do like short horror films and horror films in general, and I really crave seeing the behind the scenes footage from people's shorts. I probably watch more behind the scenes for horror short films than I do actual horror short films. If you've done a horror short film in the past few years and done a behind the scenes for it, I almost promise you that I've watched the BTS. I love them, I crave them, I can't get enough of them. And when I watch them, they're always pretty decent, and it's always fun to watch. It's always funny to watch the actors mess up and do bloopers. It's sometimes interesting to see interviews with the characters, but there's a real part of it that I crave that I very rarely find in there, and that is like a really detailed explanation as to what, how, why, what. What are you doing? How are you doing it? Why are you doing it that way? And what's it going to look like in post? I would love to be able to see someone's short film and go, wow, that was a cool shot. Go to the behind the scenes and go, okay, here's how they set up that shot. Here's what they're doing. Here's how they're doing it. Here's why they're doing it. And here's what it's going to look like then. So I can just duplicate that and I have a cool shot like you did. So I really crave to see that in a behind the scenes, and I don't usually see that. And I just wish it existed. I want to start doing that on this channel. I want to do really detailed behind the scenes and answer what, how, why, what for every single setup. I really want to do that, and in this one, big disclaimer, big disappointment, I didn't really pull it off, but I'm going to try a little bit harder next time. This one, I found it really difficult to stop and grab a behind the scenes camera and try to film everything that I was doing every time I was doing it. My mind wasn't on doing a BTS. While I was filming this, my head was kind of in the game, just trying to figure out the shots that I needed. So I didn't really succeed on doing that on this one, but I promise I will try to get someone to help me with the behind the scenes going forward. I'll have a dedicated behind the scenes person who will stop me on every setup that we do so that we can explain what, how, why, what. What are you doing, Adam? How are you doing it? Why have you chosen to do it that way? And what's it going to look like in the final film? So there you go. It'll be much more geared towards filmmakers. It might not be interesting to you unless you're a wannabe filmmaker like me, but I crave detailed behind the scenes answering those questions, and I don't see a lot of that. It's usually just interviews and bloopers, and I want to change that. I want to do really detailed stuff that almost feels like a little mini film course for every BTS, taught by someone who has absolutely no credentials and no right being the professor of a film course, but I think it's fun to watch, and I really would like to create that in the short film community. And if you all want to see that, then stick around, because hopefully I can really start gearing these BTSs to answering those questions for every setup, and it'll be really detailed and really fun. It'll almost be like a little mini filmmaker course, not how to, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but more a how I do it at least. So if you ever see something in my short film, heaven forbid I figure out how to do something cool, you can go to the BTS and you can see exactly what, how, why, what I did. Okay, so this is the behind the scenes, or the making of the what, how, why, what of Alien Theory. Okay, so the idea of this film quickly. Someone put an image on Facebook which pretty much said what I did in my movie. It was just an image of an alien, and it said, have you ever walked through a door and forgot why you were going into that room? Maybe it's because you ran into an alien and they had to erase your memory in order to escape. And I saw that and I was like, oh, that's pretty neat. I actually have an alien mask. Maybe I could do a cool little short film based on that image that I saw on Facebook. So I don't know who made that image, but this is essentially their idea. I'm just making a short film out of it. So that was the general idea of the short film. And I might break down lighting on an individual scene or individual shot basis, but for this one, pretty much I wanted all of the light to be coming from outside of the house. I wanted it to look like moonlight coming in and maybe some porch lights coming in. So I set up a few lights outside of the front porch so that it would be blasting through that front door and the front windows. And I set up lights on the side window, the steps scene, with blue gel on it so that there would be blue light coming in through that way. And then I also turned on one of the other lights on the other side of the house because it has that tungsten orangey feel. So I really like the contrast of colors. If you've seen any of my how-to horror movie lighting things, you'll know that I like that contrast. So I have that really bluish white light coming from the outside, and then I have this orange light coming from the front, which gives it that two-tone horror look of blue in the back, orange in the front. And I think that looks really cool. So that was the general lighting setup. I also had a little tiny LED light that I would set in front of the window with a blue gel on it to make it look like light was coming in from one of the windows that I didn't light. And also, if I was just filming a scene that I thought I needed a little bit of additional light, I had one of these little things that I could just kind of move around and add some light to the shadows so you could see things a little bit better. I would rather overlight and overexpose the footage so that in post, when I add color grade and I darken the shadows, you're gonna bring all the contrast way down and it's gonna look way darker. So one little tip is I shoot everything way brighter than I think it needs to be and then tone it way down. If you look through the camera and it looks really dark and really creepy and you can barely see anything, if you try to add any kind of color grade to that, you're not gonna be able to see anything and your footage is gonna be way too dark. So always expose a little bit higher than you think it's gonna need to be. That way you have some room in post to be able to add some cool color correction and things without losing all your hard work and losing all the footage that you shot because it's too dark and you can't see shit. Okay, so the what, how, why, what, the very first scene. What are we doing? Well, we have to start the film. You can't not start it somehow. One cliche way to do that, a common way I should say, cliche makes it sound bad. It isn't bad, it's cliche and common because it works really well. It's called an establishing shot. You show your audience where all of this is taking place. So what I did was an establishing shot of the outside of the house. I threw some big floodlights in the back of the house just so that there would be some light coming from behind it and from the sides. I also shot this about 8:30 at night. Sunset was 8:27. I shot this the night before in the middle of the night, like 11, 12 o'clock, and it was so dark that you couldn't see anything, you couldn't see the sky. It was just a big black wash. So I actually waited to the next night and did it at 8:30. Sunset was 8:27. At 8:30, it sort of looked dark, but the sky was still a little bit lit. And I thought that that looked a little bit better because then I had enough room in post to be able to bring the exposure down a little bit and it worked out a little bit better. So what I'm doing, an establishing shot. How am I doing it? Easy as pie. It was just a tripod shot. It was locked down on a tripod and I had the tilt head loose so that I could start looking at the sky and then tilt down to the house. Now, why did I choose to do it that way? I wanted this establishing shot to show the audience that we are just in a typical normal suburban home. You know, we're not on the outskirts of Area 51. We are in anywhere USA where this could happen to anybody. So I wanted it to be just a normal, plain, boring house. But I wanted to add a little bit of subtext if I could. So I started looking up at the stars or up at the sky where the aliens would come from, and then I tilt the camera down to the house. So it's almost like, here we go, the aliens came in this direction, now they're in your house. So that's why I did it that way, and this is how it looks when you do that. Okay, so the next shot, what are we doing? We need to show the character and we hear this yell and this zap sound. And we know now after watching the short film that it was an alien that erased Bill's memory, the actor Bill. So now we have to show Bill and we have to show that he's been zapped and that he's lost his memory. So how are we gonna do that? There were a few different ways that I thought this could be done. One would be from really, really far away so that he looks really lost. That feeling of looking from someone from a far distance feels to me like they're lost almost. They're lost. They're a tiny little portion of this big, huge scene. And I wanted that lost feeling, but my house is too small to be super far away and filming. And I didn't think that would work out. So the next best thing that I thought would work would be to really zoom in close to Bill and to slowly pull away from Bill as he's coming to. How we did that? Simple dolly tracks. And I'll put links to this stuff in the description below if you have any interest in looking at it, but a simple dolly track like this turns your tripod into something way more cinematic and awesome, and it allows you to do lots and lots of things, and I love it. I couldn't recommend it more. So all we did was set up some dolly tracks, pushed way in, 17mm lens, as close as we can to Bill, and then we slowly pull away. Now, what? Introducing Bill, how? With the dolly track starting on him and pulling away. Why are we doing it that way? To me, like I said, he could either be really far away and be lost in the frame, which would give the audience that lost feeling, or you can kind of come to and realize where you are along with him. I wanted the camera movement in this setup to make you feel like you're coming to with him. So we start really close on him, and as he's coming to and realizing where he is, the camera is pulling back so that you can realize where he is as well. So it's just a little trick that I thought made you, the audience, feel a little bit more like Bill does when he's coming out of this haze. That's the what, how, why, what of that little setup.
What did I come in here for?
So then the next setup, I needed something for Bill to get from this area where he just got zapped up to the stairwell. I really liked the staircase as a location, and I wanted some scenes to be shot over there, but I needed to get my actor from there to there. And I could have done that in a million different ways. I could have put my camera on a Steadicam and followed in front of him. I could have put my camera on a Steadicam and followed behind him. I could have put the tripod pretty much anywhere I wanted to in the house and just watch him walk. I could have pointed it at the ground and watched his feet walk. I could have done a generic POV where it looks like it's actually him that's walking. There was 1,000 different decisions I could have made to get Bill from one side of the house to the other side of the house. What I thought might be cool is kind of a POV shot from the alien's perspective. So if we're gonna watch Bill, let's watch him creepily. Let's put the camera way back in the kitchen in the dark. There's no lights there. And all we do is put it on the tripod and do a simple pan. And when you do a pan on a tripod, it feels like someone watching and turning their head. It's really a basic move. It's so easy to do, but just by moving the camera out of the room that Bill was in and peeking through gaps in the walls and peeking through doorways, it makes it automatically feel like a point of view. And since it's in the dark, and if you listen subtly, I had the little alien sound in the background during that, it almost feels like it's the alien watching Bill go from side to side. So I needed to move my actor from here to here. What's a good way to do it? Put it on the camera tripod and pan it and watch him. Why'd we do it that way? Because it feels a little bit more like a POV of the alien and it feels really creepy. And what does it look like in the end? Like this. So the next setup, what are we doing here? We are following Bill up the steps, and then he hears a sound and he comes back down the steps. So how did we do that? Same dolly setup, and I unfortunately, again, since I didn't have someone actually doing the behind the scenes for me, didn't have any footage of it, but I have footage of, the other setups with the dolly, so it pretty much looks exactly the same, just picture it facing the actual stairs. So another little trick that I like to try to do is mimic the action of the actor with the camera movement. And David Fincher does this. There's a video online, maybe I'll try to find it, where they were talking about how David Fincher follows the direction of the actor, and I thought it was really awesome. So I wanted to try to incorporate some little neat things like that. So if I was on those dolly tracks facing the steps, that allowed me to move forward towards the steps and backwards away from the steps. So what I wanted to do was, as Bill is walking away, I wanted to follow him with the dolly, and as he was coming back down, I wanted to bring the dolly back. So what I'm doing, following Bill. How am I doing it? On the dolly track. And again, I'm loosening the tilt on the fluid head on my tripod so that I can also tilt up and down depending on where his head is. But it's locked in this direction, in the pan direction. Why am I doing it that way? I think it makes you feel like you are along with him if you are mimicking his movements. So we're walking towards him as he's walking up the steps, and then we stop when he stops and hears something. And then he starts slowly coming back to us, and we start slowly pulling away on the dolly track. And why we're doing it? Because it just brings you into his world and makes you mimic his movements, and I feel like it feels like him. And what does it look like in the final product? Like this. And then this little Google thing that I did for a couple different reasons. One, I think Bill, the actor, is hilarious. For some reason, anything he says, any kind of dialogue he does just cracks me up, and I don't know why. I just like the way he chooses to say his lines and his words. It's always interesting to me. Hey, Google. So I wanted a little bit more dialogue, and I also thought that people might watch this and say, why doesn't he just turn on the light and go look at it? Like, what kind of idiot wouldn't just go turn on the light if they heard a noise? So I wanted some reason to also explain why he's not turning on the light, so I just added this simple little thing, and all I did was tripod shot with the tilt and pan loose so that I can move it around if I needed to as he was coming up and down the steps, and then it's just a locked off tripod shot for the actual Google Home, and I recorded all that in post and added it in. So that's the what, how, why, what of that.
Hey Google, turn the lights on.
Sorry, that device isn't currently set up.
This next shot is the Signs shot. It's my homage to that scene in Signs. It's pretty much just ripping it off completely, but a little bit different, obviously, because I'm not doing it like the POV style like they did it. I wanted it to be really fluid and really cinematic moving. So again, dolly shot. I have the dolly track set up with my camera on it, and I keep the tilt, the up and down of the camera loose so that as I'm going past Bill, I can keep it at one level, and once I get into the kitchen, I can bring it down a little bit so that the alien isn't cut off, you know, at a weird spot. I needed to be able to control the up and down. So pretty much just a movement forward is what we're doing with a little bit of tilt up and down. So why are we doing it that way? It is the direction that Bill is moving to go see what's in his kitchen. And if I mimic that with you, the audience, with the camera, it feels like you're walking into the kitchen. And I actually have Bill in the foreground of that because of a big fancy word called parallax. If you are doing any sort of movement and you have something in the foreground and in the background, they move in a parallax, they move at separate speeds, so it makes the movement that you're doing look way cooler. So I could have easily just pushed in on the door frame and had the alien walk by, but have something in the foreground like Bill there, makes that movement look even more cinematic. So that's why we did it, and here's what it looks like. Okay, and then this is just a reaction shot. It's just locked off on the tripod where he is reacting to this thing he saw, running over to the doorway, and then I switch over to a handheld shot. So I like really cinematic fluid movement. I like really controlled movement. I think that looks really awesome. I don't like handheld, I don't like shoulder held, except for little minor situations where you want to mimic the frantic, crazy nature that's going on in the scene by having the camera moving frantically and crazily. Crazily, is crazily a word? Yeah, well. So everything is locked off except for these little insert shots of the door when Bill is messing with it because I wanted it to feel kind of handheld and frantic. And then we just do a quick pan up, and I'm trying to mimic his looking up with the camera looking up to see the alien at the same time. So you, the viewer, and Bill are both seeing this thing outside at the same time. And again, I didn't do anything differently with the lighting out there. It's still the lights that are just blasting in the front door. And we do a reaction shot of Bill. Again, this is just locked off, him backing up as the alien rises out of the darkness behind him, and then we switch to the other side, and it's just the same thing. It's a lockdown shot over the shoulder where you see the alien clicking the mind eraser device, which was just something stupid and homemade. And then we end it kind of as we begin with that sound that we heard again at the beginning, and then we go back out to the house. Now this time we're on the exterior of the house, and we start from the house and go back up into space. So kind of a reverse or bookending what we did on the beginning. At the beginning they came down into the house, and at the end they went back up. So, pretty pretentious and crazy, right? But I wanted to kind of show you what goes on in my mind and maybe understand a little bit of the stuff that goes into these types of things. So even a 2-minute short film might take the channel that you're watching days or sometimes even weeks to pull off. But I think that it's a fun thing to be able to see exactly how I did it, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, why I'm doing it that way, and what it looks like in post. And if you are interested in looking at these things from a extremely detailed filmmaker perspective, let me know down in the comments, because I think this would be fun. I crave something like this existing out there, and I don't find it very often, so I want to try to do it. I don't know if I can pull it off. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg of doing it. I think I did a pretty crappy job in this one, capturing all those little film techniques that I was trying to do. But hopefully on the next ones or ones coming up, I will actually hire someone to actually do a behind the scenes with me or for me, or shoot a camera, and then they can stop me in the middle of a shot and say, Adam, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Why are you doing it this way? What's it gonna look like? But we'll have to save that for the next one. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, please subscribe. There you go, behind the scenes. Way too long for such a short horror film, but kind of what I want to see, so I'm gonna make it. So, all right, see you in the next one, bye.